All right, 3, 2, 1.
Test. Test 1, 2, 3.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the rolling hills of upstate New York. Watkins Glen International will be the scene for today's 120 minutes of thunder presented by Inside Sim Racing TV. Sean Peachin joining you. Alongside me is ETV Live's own Harrison Weathers. How are you doing today, sir?
All right, man. Glad to be here. It should be a very interesting race.
All right, yes, we have car classes that we will be following today with prototypes, McLaren GTs, as well as the Cadillac GTs. But before we get into the racing, let's go ahead and throw it down trackside for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Okay, so a fantastic rendition of the national anthem as we prepare for what is going to be a fantastic 2 hours of racing on track. So, Harrison, Watkins Glen provides quite a few challenges for drivers. It looks like a pretty straight and simple road course for these guys, but unfortunately there is a lot of elevation changes and a lot of slick curbing that makes things quite complicated, and especially since we're running the classic boot configuration, there is a lot of things that can go wrong for these drivers.
Yeah, this is a track that seems simple at first glance, but you definitely need to get into a rhythm here, and it's very easy to make mistakes. It's a track that's pretty much not like any other track. There are not many road courses that are very similar to the Watkins Glen boot configuration, and we will be running the classic boot, so they'll be bypassing the inner loop or the bus stop, if you will, and entering the carousel, turn number 5, I believe, at a really high rate of speed. So it's going to be entertaining. It should be very interesting to see.
Yeah, well, we have about 42 cars on track for this split, a mixture, again, as we said, the Daytona prototypes, as well as the McLaren MP4 12Cs and the Cadillac CTS GT cars as well. So one of the things that we'll definitely be keeping our eyes on is the traffic on this fantastic world-famous course. So before we go green flags, it looks like the cars are setting up on the grid. Let's run through the starting lineup, going through the top 10 in each of the classes. Starting with the Daytona prototypes, we have number 22, Mitchell de Jong, sitting on the pole position. Second place is going to be number 7, George Sandman, at a 135.9. P3 is going to be the number 2 car of Anthony Rosselli at 136.027. Number 4 position will be the number 6 car of John Emerson. 5th position, the number 38 of John Zolosi. Number 6 will be the number 26 of Bernard Berger. 7th is Antoine Higlin. 8th, Dennis Hirschka. Sorry if I butchered that for you. 9th will be Kitty Engstrom, and 10th, Marcus Hamilton.
And in the McLaren class, the pole sitter is Dylan Sharman in the number one car. Dylan Sharman, the number one rated driver here, with a 43.07, 1 minute 43.07 around this 11-turn track. Enzo Benito closely behind, second in the MP4, right on his tail, 600ths off. And then about 4 tenths back to the third place qualifier, 20th overall for Timu Ivanen. Fourth in the McLaren will be Marcus Jirac. Fifth, Oliver Brandt. Sixth, Ronnie Fantini. Seventh, we've got Bruno De Carmo. Eighth, Christian Frank. Ninth, Daniel Pazueta. Sorry if I just butchered your name there. And 10th in the McLaren will be Matthias Witt.
As the cars now head into the boot part of the configuration, we'll go over the pole sitter for the Cadillac class. It will be Jason Mitzi at 145.003. The Cadillac class is actually our smallest class today on track. So congratulations to Jason in taking pole position as the cars now make their way down to the heel. So again, it's going to be 2 hours. What do you expect that we're going to see within the first, I would say, 15 minutes?
Well, I do see the McLarens have backed away from the DP on the grid, making sure they have enough room and aren't on their tails. The mixed class racing is going to be very interesting. It's not as big of a speed difference as we've seen in previous endurance races, so to speak, with a lot of times we've seen the DP and the Mustang. So these cars are a lot closer. I think the biggest speed difference is going to be about 10 seconds between the Cadillac CTS VR and the DP. So mixed class racing and a lot of extremely competitive drivers here, a lot of incredibly fast qualifying times.
Indeed, there have been quite a few times that are shockingly fast, with some great names in the Daytona prototypes as well as the McLarens. But the cars are now working their way back towards the front start-finish line, where we will be going green. So 120 minutes coming to you live today on ETV Live, ETV Live Radio. So it promises to be awesome action. Watkins Glen always does put together a great show. So the Ford Mustang pace car is now coming off the track, and it's going to be up to Mitchell to take them down to the green flag. And we are racing here at Watkins Glen with Mitchell getting a fantastic start as the DPs go into turn number 1.
Yeah, Anthony Rosselli from New Jersey looking to get that second position away from the 7 car of George Sandman, which he will. So Rosselli up to position number 2. And I believe Rosselli ran extremely well when we ran the races at the Daytona International Speedway back in February around the road course there. So Rosselli with an early charge to get into the 3rd spot. But Mitchell de Jong with a great start out to an early lead, as the DPs mostly are getting single file already. Not too much single file right now, these guys wanting to be patient at the moment.
Okay, and we should mention to you that all of the other classes have got underway without any kind of issues. To my knowledge, I have not seen any cars end up into the tires, which can only be a good thing. So again, one of the things that we really concern ourselves about with Watkins Glen is that first corner. There is a lot of cars and not a lot of track, so a lot of times a lot of races can come to an end pretty quick there in turn number 1 with fender benders and cars up into the tires. So far it looks like a great start for all the cars. Oh, we have one DP that's went off into the sand there. I need to get a car number on that, but he is back on the track. No harm, just going to lose about 5-6 positions there.
And actually, I just caught in the S's on what I believe was the first lap, Marcus Meyer actually had an issue. He was side by side entering turn number 3, lost a lot of momentum, and I'm not sure if warp was a problem for the driver behind him, but Marcus Meyer was contacted from behind and went hard into the outside retaining wall, the guardrail, and he immediately took it back to pit road. So a rough start. That was the 40 car of Marcus Meyer being shown currently off the track. Just a rough wreck on lap 1. That's a tough break to start this race.
Indeed, and now as we take a look back at our McLaren class, pretty cut and dry with the McLarens as well. So single file racing. First couple cars have been able to break away from the field as they kind of string out a little bit as well, working their second lap. And And it looks like we do have actually the replay for that Daytona prototype accident that you just referenced. So we'll actually go to the replay on that one.
Yeah, contact from behind, and he was hard into the outside wall. Kept it out of the way as the McLarens came up on him very fast, but they were able to get by without any incident. And actually, early on in this race with the McLarens, Dylan Sharman going down that long backstretch with a lot of draft lost lead to Enzo Benito. And I think these two names are going to be the two drivers to look out for most of this race. But Teemu Ivanen right now with a good start. He qualified about 4/10 off of their pace, but right now he's running right with them. So maybe not the best qualifying lap that he was looking for, or just possibly just a better race pace than a qualifying pace. But Teemu Ivanen right now keeping up. So the top three McLarens are all together with Enzo Benito currently out front in the 4 car.
Indeed, the number 9 car of Teemu Ivanen is a very accomplished GT driver, and again, Watkins Glen is one of those tracks where on qualifying you have to get everything absolutely right, because there is, like you referenced before the race, it's one of those tracks where you must develop your rhythm. You get into one of those rhythms, and then you can really start to click off some pretty consistent fast laps. That is what really separates the spectacular drivers from the maybe not so spectacular drivers as well, is the ability to get that qualifying lap, or sometimes even those guys like Teemu understand that race pace is going to be more important because we are racing for 120 minutes. And there are reports of a McLaren off the track. Not exactly sure. Yeah,
I actually haven't seen
him there. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet either, so we will be scrolling back and looking through that. It was one of the McLarens towards the back of that class. So as I continue to watch the front 3 here, and going back to the Cadillacs, not to be forgotten, Jason Mitzi as well, 36 seconds off the overall lead. But the number 8 Cadillac of Jason Mitzi is actually still leading that. So everything pretty straightforward in the Cadillac class as well. And the thing that I really find fantastic about these multi-class, I keep wanting to say multi-car, but I think that all cars or all races have multi-cars. But the multi-class races is you just get a lot of the best drivers for those particular cars, such as the Cadillac and the McLarens. And I mean, the racing is just fantastic. I mean, these guys really know how to muscle these McLarens as well as the Cadillacs, and obviously the Daytona prototype guys as well. But I've always found that in the GT ranks, these guys are much more dedicated to the GT car and can get in there and just put together some fantastic pace, as opposed to people like the Daytona prototypes, where it seems a lot of the sim racing community does like to drive the prototypes and win the overall race.
Yeah, and one thing is when you have extremely accomplished sim racers running the slower cars or the GT cars or the Cadillacs here with Jason Mitzi currently out front, what you see a lot of is you don't see many incidents when mixed class passing is going on. People are very aware. This top split. There's I think over 300 people who signed up. I didn't get an official count, but in the top split here, there's a lot of cars who are very aware of their surroundings, and because of that, you'll see you won't see too many incidents pop up from mixed class cars trying to overtake each other. So it's a really nice balance when you have those really accomplished drivers running the McLarens, running the Cadillacs.
Indeed. Well, let's take it back up to the front of the race overall. The number 22 Daytona prototype of Mitchell de Jong still leads by 1.2 seconds over Anthony Rosselli. So it seems as though all the drivers have escaped serious issue at the start of the race, are kind of starting to set in and really get those laps clicked off, as they have about an hour and 53 minutes still on the clock. So quite a bit of racing left. A lot of this field could be gone or shaken up big time before we get to the checkered flag. So, but Mitchell de Jong setting the early pace, just jumped out another tenth of a second, it looks like, over Rosselli in the number 2 Daytona prototype. George Sandman is your third place runner in the Daytona prototypes. He is, and overall, he is 2 seconds off. So it seems like everybody has really established themselves and made it through, except for a couple cars had their races come to a premature end, or at least are off track. Those being Fabio Gonzalez, 2 laps down in the McLaren MP412C, as well as the before mentioned Marcus Meyer, who had the Daytona prototype issue. He is also 2 laps down. So one of the things that I think does really bear mentioning, though, is this circuit. This circuit is the old, as we said during the pre-race, the old boot configuration. There we go. I was trying to call it something else, but the old boot configuration where we don't have that chicane. So we've got that long straightaway where the slipstream can really come into play as you go into the carousel. And I think, I mean, when you look at the kinds of cars that have raced here before, you've had the Formula Ones, you've had sports car for as long as anybody can remember, you've had Indy cars that have raced at Watkins Glen. Obviously, the Cup cars race here once a year. I mean, just the who's who of worldwide motorsports has been here to Watkins Glen, and I've seen the entry into this race, and I was actually really excited that we were going to be able to have another world-class event like this at Watkins Glen. I think it's just such a fantastic track that has the easy parts like the straightaways and trying to work the slipstreams, but then again, if you get too much onto some of these fast areas there, like turns 2 and 3, you can really get on the curbs and lose control of the car. I mean, it just really provides a number, Harrison, of challenges for these drivers, and the curbing especially here is very dangerous.
Yeah, while many people don't consider it maybe the most technical track, it does have its little nuances that make it very difficult. Possibly that long back straightaway without the inner loop does help drivers keep up if they're possibly, you know, maybe a tenth or two off, especially in the McLaren. I think the slower the car, I think the McLarens are drafting a lot down that back straightaway. But actually, looking at the lead battle, 1 lap ago, the top 3 Daytona prototypes between Rosselli, De Jong, and Sandman, they were all ran within 0.02 of a second. They were about a second and 4/10 off of the pole pace. But last lap, Anthony Rosselli entering the boot, actually coming out of the carousel, went into that left-hander and got incredibly loose, and he got his car under control. And this lap, he actually picked up. He's picking the pace back up, but certainly lost Mitchell there quite a bit, and brought George right back to his back bumper, but able to get that under control. But Mitchell was able to pull about a second in the last 2 laps, capitalizing on Anthony Rosselli's mistake.
Indeed. It is one of those. It is one of those technical things, and especially the Daytona prototype. One of the things that I've always found difficult when driving the prototype, especially, is it does have a lot of grip for a prototype. But we also have to realize that these are not LMP2s with massive levels of grip and aerodynamic, packages that allow them to really hug the racetrack. These DPs are kind of rough to drive sometimes, and as you mentioned, with cars getting loose, you can really kind of force the car into the corner a little bit, and it does react negatively if you are trying to overdrive the car.
Yeah, you can tell some of these drivers are actually yawing their car out quite a bit and making it work, but you yaw it too far out and you'll just be scrubbing speed off of the tires and just losing grip on exit and using up the rear tires, and could bring you into a situation where you're running multiple laps in a row, no grip, just very loose off the corner. But Mitchell right now is setting the pace, and this lap will be 1 minute 37:25. Very consistent. Mitchell's been in the 37:20s for, I believe, the last 5 laps in a row, and Rosselli seems to have faded into the 37:70s. So that was about a 3rd consecutive lap that he's lost half a second on the leader. The lead is up to 3.29 seconds on Rosselli, and Sandman taking 0.2 off of Rosselli's advantage on him in that past lap.
Indeed, Mitchell is really setting the pace here early on, as we are actually working lap number 8 with about an hour and 47 to go, so still tons of racing. But here early on, it is the Mitchell De Jong show, with Anthony Rosselli sitting P2, George Sandman LMP3. Now looking at the McLaren class, 17th position overall, the number 4 car, Enzo Benito, leading the McLaren MP412C class. Second place, Dylan Sharman is currently second in the number 1 car, and then Timu Ivanen, the number 9 car, is third position in the McLaren class. Taking a look at the Cadillac class as well, the number 8 car in Cadillac, Jason Mitney, pole setter, is still leading that class, and it really looks as though it is business as usual in the Cadillac class, as I don't think we've seen much of a change from the overall qualifying pace either. So
Yeah, last lap, Jason Mitzi actually pulled half a second on. I'm sorry. I'm actually looking at a car who came down pit road, but Wojciech Rabston was actually about 3 or 4 tenths slower than Jason Mitzi last time by. Jason out to about a 3-second class lead, about a minute 26 behind the leader. So it won't be long until those Daytona prototypes, with all that horsepower and all that grip, are able to go on by the leaders in the Cadillac. But Jason Mitzi out to an early lead.
yeah, we do have one car that is slow. Okay, yeah, the number 30. Yeah, number 31 of David Ward is actually the car that we're getting the call is off the pace. We are scrambling to get a replay to figure out what exactly happened before we take you to commercial. So
actually it was a contact, I believe, in turn number 8, the right-hander in the northwest part of the boot. Kitty Engstrom just got in there a little. Actually, David Ward in the 31 got in a little bit too hot in that pink prototype, and as he lost his momentum in the center of the corner, Kitty Engstrom was right there, and contact was made, and it sent David Ward into the sand. And once he got out, he made his way to pit road.
Okay, so that's what we have coming in for that incident. So right now we are approaching and hitting lap number 10, so we're going to kick it to commercial and be right back from Watkins Glen as we continue the 120 minutes of thunder here at Watkins Glen.
Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Travis, start your engines!
Michael Conti comes up at a corner number 4, and the checkered flag, he wins his first NASCAR iRacing. InsideSimRacing.tv, the fastest show on the internet. Sim racing news and reviews since 2007, with new shows every week.
Okay, and welcome back to Northern New York as we continue this multi-class 120 minutes of Thunder, presented by Inside Sim Racing TV. Fantastic race so far. That has been all Mitchell de Jong, the number 22 Daytona prototype, still leads by 3.2 seconds over Anthony Rosselli, and George Sandman is third, currently making up your DP podium. Looking back at the McLaren MP4 12C class, we did have actually a pass for the lead during commercial. That was Dylan Sharman getting around Enzo Benito for that number 1 position in the McLaren class, with Teemu Ivonen still holding down the fort in third position.
Yeah, Dylan Sharman, a name that many people recognize, and he was hanging with Enzo for a little while. Shirley was exhibiting a little bit of patience, but Enzo right now keeping right with him, so it'll be interesting to see if Dylan is able to edge away at all. But right now it looks like Enzo keeping right with him, and Teemu Ivonen is about a second and a half behind the leader.
Okay, well, it looks like, again, going back to the Cadillac class, it is still Jason Mitzi who leads that class. He has been lapped by the leader here. So those DP cars are now starting to get around or have gotten around the Cadillacs and are now working their way through the McLaren traffic as well. So lots of cars here, the McLarens especially. If we look at roughly from Oliver Brandt in the 18th position, number 28 car, kind of all the way back is where we have all of those McLarens. So it's kind of a McLaren train, if you will, as they work their way through the boot section of Watkins Glen International. Again, we are running, for those who are just joining us, we are running the old school boot configuration. So looking at the top spot again, still Mitchell de Jong, but that lead is starting to come down a little bit as Anthony Rosselli is now only 2.6 seconds off of the back wing of Mitchell's, with George still 3.6 back. But it looks like Anthony Rosselli is making up a little bit of time as these cars are now well into about 20 minutes into a run here.
Yeah, Anthony Rosselli has actually gained about half a second or possibly even close to 7/10 since we last spoke about him. Actually, one of the interesting battles on the track right now, it seems as though 9th through 12th, Diogo Silva, Chad Holmes, Marcus Hamilton, and Kitty Engstrom are all together battling pretty hard. They were very close in the boot. A little bit of space right now between Hamilton and Holmes, but a couple laps ago, Kitty Engstrom actually lost it in the carousel. He came up on a slower car very quickly and lost the handle. Kitty Engstrom in the 18 with a little bit of trouble there. And I might be mistaken in the Kitty Engstrom in the 18, but I think he might have actually made a little contact. He might have made a little bit of contact with, I believe it was the 38 of Jan Solozzi. Solozzi was slow on the track, quite a bit of damage to his car, and made his way back to pit road, saying over the radio that the car was simply undrivable, and to get back on the track he was going to have to fix quite a bit of damage. So Solozzi brought it behind the wall. Kitty Engstrom getting bounced around a little bit, but that 18 car is in that battle for 12th right now as they come up on a slower McLaren.
Indeed, it is a fascinating battle. As you said, this battle has been going on for several laps now, actually, and it's really allowed these cars to group up and battle for that position. And it's always when you get into these kinds of situations where you have to be so careful, because you're trying to make up positions, move to the front of the field, but you also have these McLarens as well as the Cadillacs that are on track that you have to worry about. And just one simple mistake or one take your eyes off of the road for 1 second and you're going to be inside the Armco there, off the Armco, and then probably into the gravel trap in most places. So it looks like this battle is shaping up. Diogo Silva is still hanging on with Chad Holmes right behind him. So and these cars really doing battle going into turn number 1 side by side. Last lap they'll go single file this time as they try to reset and prepare to battle again. But yes, fantastic racing from the Daytona prototypes between number 41 Diogo Silva and the number 30 of Chad Holmes. So they now scream through the Thunder Valley there. of Armco onto this long straightaway, and look at how you get that slipstream. I mean, down that super long straightaway. I mean, you can just get right on the car's gearbox, get in that slipstream, and get underneath him and outbrake him into the carousel before you get into that boot configuration, as we just saw.
Actually, Chad Holmes in that 30 car, he actually was the slowest qualified DP, the last DP to make this top split, but quite on the pace. The 30 car right now, I do believe he will edge away from Diogo Silva, but he qualified 17th and is actually right now being shown in the 9th position. So he's done a good job of coming through the field as he works his way around another McLaren. But there's a sense of urgency because there are no full course cautions in road course racing on iRacing. There are local cautions, but when you start towards the rear, it is difficult to come up through the field with enough patience to not find yourself in trouble. It's a very thin line between pushing too hard and getting yourself in trouble, and pushing hard enough to not let the guys you are as fast as get away from you. So Chad Holmes in that 30, up to position number 9 overall and in the DP class right now.
Indeed, so it looks like the Daytona prototypes have got around all of the McLarens now as well, just waiting on the last one, Dylan Sharman, who is leading that McLaren class in the number 1. He is next to get lapped if he has not been already. By the time we get around for timing and scoring, but yeah, it's still business as usual, and it's interesting that you pointed out about those caution flags. You have to be careful because, as you said, there are no full course yellows, and one of the problems with Watkins Glen is how narrow it can be. A lot of times when you have, especially here in the boot configuration, you have the Armco barriers that are like literally like 4 feet off the track, and you've got maybe 2 lanes of actual race space. Given the slower lap cars as well can block those lanes. I mean, if you have a car, especially when we have groups running close together like we were just watching with the Silva and Holmes battle, a slight incident or some kind of contact between those 2 cars and into the Armco and back across the center of the track. And I mean, we're talking multiple cars that can be taken out pretty easy, and that ruins a lot of people's days, and you cannot make that time up because, again, there's just there is no caution flag for that.
A lot of times that Armco Valleys, I think you referred to it as a couple laps ago. I like that description of it. Coming through the S's, turns 2, 3, and 4. When you see a faster car catch a mixed class, actually as they were 3 wide for a moment, entering turn 1, contact entering turn number 1, the number 41, Diogo Silva got into Dennis Hershka. Hershka was running in 8th. And spun around, no one else involved, just the Diogo got into him under braking. Actually, McLaren got a piece of Hershka. Some damage for Hershka. The McLaren that got involved was the number 15 of Daniel Pizzueta. But I was going to say in that when you go through the S, when you have a McLaren in front of a DP, actually as Daniel is right now in front of Marcus Hamilton in the number 16, when they come through there, it's very narrow. When these guys are not, a lot of them are not running full throttle through there. The Cadillac, you can run full throttle, I believe, the slowest car in the field. But when you come through there, it's very easy to get stuck behind slower traffic, and you have to exhibit a lot of patience. And with that long straightaway coming right out of turn 4, it's a lot of time to lose.
Indeed. That with the lacking chicane there, if you do get hung up behind the slower car, you are going to pay for it probably much more than a lot of the places on the calendar that folks participate in the racing here on iRacing, the sim, if you will, that most people have gravitated to for their motorsports needs. Again, it's some dicey action there between those cars, between the number 41 of Diogo Silva. His pack of cars, if you will, just moved through some of the slower lap traffic, and there was actually some contact between a Daytona prototype and a GT car. Nobody went off or anything, just a little rubbing, if you will, between the two. But again, yes, It is such a ebb and flow kind of thing, and to get into one of those slower McLarens, just as we see here, you know, it really messes things up. We do have a car on pit road, the number 29 car. So the 29 car of Danilo Jacobs actually has went to pit road for some issues. He has already shown 5 laps down in that McLaren MP412C. So he's off. Not exactly sure how long that we're going to see these cars on track before they need to make some pit stops. But we are working lap number 17 with an hour and 32 minutes left in this race. So still a ton of time on track here for these guys. And at the top, number 22 of Mitchell de Jong still leads this race by 2.2 seconds over Anthony Rosselli. George Sandman still 3.6 seconds, as he probably has been, it seems, the whole race, in the 3rd overall position and 3rd in DP. Where we also have in the McLaren, Enzo Benito has went back around Dylan Sharman, the number 4 of Enzo, getting around Dylan under the slipstream, and then number 9 of Timu Ivanen is still 3rd in class for the McLarens, with Jason Mitzi 27th overall in the number 8 Cadillac, leading the Cadillac division. So fantastic racing so far, and really not a whole lot of incidents. I mean, we've had a couple little fender benders or a couple guys get into the backside of one another, but nothing too massive, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think this the drivers have all done a pretty good job starting this race. Only maybe 2 or 3 incidents that we have seen. I went back and looked at what happened to Danilo Jacobs in the 29, and he's decided to fix all of his damage on pit road. He was on lap number 10, entering the carousel, turn number 5, and he simply got in a little bit too hot, and the car came out from underneath him. He lost that grip on the rear end, and he countersteered quickly, and he countersteered a little bit too hard. He overcorrected into the outside barriers. As I believe the 30 of Chad Holmes has an incident right now. The number 30 of Chad Holmes is slow coming out of turn number 5, the carousel. There was contact between him and Kitty Engstrom. Kitty finding himself in a few incidents so far, some of which not his fault at all. But there was actually this is a multi-car incident. Diago Silva also involved. Got up on his side, I believe, or on his roof. Was turned around as Kitty Engstrom spun after contact with the 30 of Chad Holmes. So that was actually a 3 or 4 car wreck on lap number 18, entering the carousel. A tough break for a lot of cars. This incident happened running around the battle for 8th and 9th.
Indeed, exactly, and it's just what we talked about. When you get an incident like that where the cars, these guys have been wrecking, or have been racing rather, not wrecking, but racing hard for several laps, and just couldn't seem to find that kind of split or really get away from each other to run laps, just constant battling, and then a lapse in judgment ended with quite a few cars actually getting taken out because of that arm cone, because of how narrow this track can be. And yeah, a lot of good race cars are actually torn up there on that particular accident. So tough break for Diago and those guys, but it is the name of the game, as we will now throw it to commercial. Actually, Mitchell de Jong still leads this race overall by 1.1 seconds over Anthony Rosselli, with an hour and 29 minutes left on track. Keep it here at ETV Live, as the finish of this race should prove to be fantastic. So we will be right back.
Join 5,000 plus other listeners where you can hear everything from big 80s metal to classic rock and roll, country radio, ETV live sports radio, even adult and unplugged rock and roll. HDRadioNetwork.com, one of the fastest growing internet radio networks. HDRadioNetwork.com. Take it with you, cowboy. Get the mobile app for Android, iPhone, iPad, and all the rest from TuneIn.com. serious online racing enthusiast, you need Derek Spear Design, maker of high-quality, custom-built, and 50-caliber strong simulation racing products like button boxes, shifter pedals, component parts, and more. The advantage a championship sim racing driver needs. Rated 10 out of 10 by Inside Sim Racing TV. Check out his line of top-shelf sim racing products reasonably priced at DerekSpearDesigns.com and buckle in for a no-nonsense ride. DerekSpearDesigns.com today, cowboy.
And welcome back to Watkins Glen International for the 120 minutes of Thunder presented by Inside Sim Racing TV. We are now watching the overall race as well as on board actually with Dylan Sharman, your second place driver in the McLaren class here in this multi-class race. So Dylan Sharman chasing actually Enzo Benito, who's got around him yet again. So fantastic racing in that McLaren class, along with the good racing that we've had in the Daytona prototype class as well. So as we now have quite a few cars getting past all of the Daytona prototypes who were collected in the scrum there right before commercial break, have now been overtaken by the lead McLaren cars. So put Enzo Benito, number 4, in 11th place. And number 1 car, Dylan Sharman, is in 12th as he now chases Enzo Benito and tries to get around him.
And as you can see down that long backstretch, that slipstream, he's gained at least 4 or 5 car lengths entering the carousel. Enzo Benito throws it deep into the carousel in front of the one of Dylan Sharman. But both these cars seem very evenly matched. When one gets out front, they're not able to pull the other. As these McLarens are 1 lap down now, we saw them getting passed by a lot of the DPs, trying to stay out of the way, but also trying to not lose as much ground on their competition behind them, or in Enzo's case, it would be Dylan. And Teemu Ivanen appears to be about 0.3 off of the leader's pace in his class the last 2 or 3 laps, so not quite able to keep up with Enzo or Dylan Sharman, but a very nice battle. And it appears, as we're 40 minutes into this race with 1 hour and 20 to go, that this battle in the McLaren will go on for much of the race.
Okay, so we are watching here the battle. I don't see anything on track overly crazy. Again, we are watching this McLaren. These McLarens do battle, so great stuff. And actually, I'll admit, I've just come back actually recently for the iRacing. I have not driven the McLaren, so I would like to fancy a lap around that around Watkins Glen in that car especially. I do know for a fact that those Cadillac CTS race cars are brutal to drive. So mad respect to Jason Minzy, who is actually still leading that Cadillac class. I don't understand how he's made it this long, as I would have wrecked probably 7 times over in that thing and caused a lot of heartache. But again, at the top here, we have the 22 of Mitchell DeJong leading the race over Anthony Rosselli by 1.8 seconds, and George Sandman still 3rd place at 3.5 seconds. So holding station there in 3rd, waiting for potentially a mistake on track. Antoine Hingelin is the 4th position in the number 12 car. Number 26 in 5th position is Bernard Berger. So that is your top 5 in the Daytona prototype class. As again, so many of those Daytona prototypes taken out early on with the big accident. And I would like to actually throw a special shout out to the number 25 car. 7th place is Jacob Desmaris. I was actually teammates with him in an IndyCar championship that we had done last year at some point. So I was teammates with him. That was good fun. And I know for a fact that Jacob works very hard in the Daytona prototypes at Watkins Glen. So it surprises me none whatsoever that he is in the 7th position, but he is 26 seconds off of Mitchell DeJong's pace. So some work to do, but special shout out to him. So, but yeah, overall, looks like we're really starting to settle in with this, continue to settle in with this race. Nothing too crazy going on at the moment. Just to run down your top 3 again in class, we've already went over the Daytona prototypes, but Enzo Benito still leads Dylan Sharman in the McLaren class. That is overall position number 11. 12, and 13. So Enzo over Dylan, and then Timo Ivinen still in the 3rd position there in the McLaren class. And then Jason Mitzi is still leading the Cadillac class as well in the number 8. He is 23rd overall and 2 laps down to the overall race leader. So really kind of thinning out, and seems as though we, you know, a lot of these incidents I think are going to be not so concentrated, not so many cars involved like we've seen with the Daytona prototypes back on lap 18, as these guys are just now trying to set fast lap, a lot of them in clean air, as we look forward to some pit stops hopefully before too long.
And as we see Dylan Sharman in the number 1 working right to the tail of Enzo Benito in the number 4, I actually just noticed his fastest lap of the race came on lap 17, 5 laps ago. Tire wear clearly not being a big factor with losing speed for these McLarens as the fuel burns off. The cars have seemingly picked up a little bit, but of course draft was a factor. I believe he was already behind Enzo at that point, running in 2nd, and the run that he gets down the backstretch coming out of turn number 4, it's very incredible to watch. The leader of the McLaren simply can't get away from the 2nd place car, but those 2 cars qualified 500ths or 600ths of a second apart from each other, and when 2 equally matched drivers are running nose to tail with that type of slipstream, it's just very hard to pull away whatsoever. It seems to be a toss-up right now between the number 4 of Benito and the number 1 of Sharman. And that number 1, of course, being that Sharman is the number 1 rated driver in this entire field. So certainly Enzo knows his work is cut out for him, as the number 1 of Sharman looks low down the backstretch, approaching the carousel, looks to take the lead entering the carousel.
Yes, fantastic pass there through the carousel. Again, that is where so much of that overtaking can occur, because the straightaway is very long, and then you get into that break in the carousel, and you get usually some great side-by-side racing as you go through there, because one car can hold that outside line, sets them up for the next corner and gives them the inside line for that next corner entering the boot segment. And then you also have the car that will run the inside and try to make up the space. So usually some fantastic action, really, when you get down into the carousel, when you're running the boot configuration, and always a joy to watch these cars. So fantastic move as we continue to work. It looks like lap 24 here, so good stuff on track.
Yeah, and the number 4 of Enzo went beneath him, entering turn number 8, I believe it is, and coming through 9, approaching 10. Dylan Sharman able to clear him as it's quite the battle, and probably the best battle around the entire track. I took a quick look around, and I do believe this is the most entertaining battle. Dylan Sharman and Enzo Benito putting on a show right now, coming to start lap 24. They've got 1 hour and 15 minutes left. No pit stop yet. I'm actually unsure about the fuel mileage figures for this car, but being that we are 46 or 45 minutes into this race already, I'd imagine that they're forgive my ignorance, but I believe they'll stretch it in just to be a 1 pit stop race, unless I'm mistaken about the fuel mileage numbers. But Enzo Benito in 2nd right now, tucked in behind Dylan Sharman as he tries to get that big run down the backstretch.
I agree. This is kind of reminiscent of what we've seen at the Indianapolis 500 actually this year, as Enzo does make the pass. It seems like every time they get through the corners and get onto the straightaway, they slipstream down into the pass, and they just go back and forth that action, as Enzo was able to get back around, but it's only a matter of how long, because again, when we hit the front straightaway and cross the start-finish line, again, slipstream into turn 1 offers the ability to get right back around these guys. So interesting battle here between Enzo and Dylan, and as you mentioned before, it definitely is the best battle on the track at the moment. But we do have at the front, it looks like Mitchell De Jong, something has happened, as he's now in 3rd place. He's 3rd place, 5.9 seconds. Okay, so he was in the pits to 22, has went into the pits and relinquished the lead to Anthony Rosselli, with the number 7 of George Zimmerman moving up into 2nd place, 0.4 seconds off. So that's what it was. Mitchell tripping the pit lane and the start-finish there. It got me caught up as I was watching this McLaren battle. So it should cycle around, but again, this is always the interesting part. I don't know how much longer these guys are going to go now between the Daytona prototypes, because he is got quite a bit of time left, and I don't know if he was on E or if he was just stopping early. I'm not sure exactly what his strategy was there, but he is in for service and has relinquished the overall race lead to the number 2 of Anthony Rosselli, as we continue to watch this McLaren battle on track, the best battle on track by far. So great stuff here at Watkins Glen for the 120 Minutes of Thunder, presented by Inside Sim Racing TV, brought to you by ETV Live as we're watching this race. So fantastic stuff. Okay, so it looks as though we're going to move now to being on board with your McLaren leader, Enzo Benito, so at the request here. Fantastic stuff to watch these guys really battle and really get a feel when you watch Enzo how he's able to work this car around this racetrack. So this McLaren MP412C GT car, beautiful car, very quick GT car, and I think probably one of my favorite additions to iRacing in a long time. But can you take us through here, Harrison, on what's happening with Enzo?
Sure. These McLarens, actually, I think Enzo's line right now might be the cleanest line I've seen in the McLaren. Right now he's pulled out to a couple of tenths on Charmin. Charmin doing all he can to stay with him. But these cars have a lot of grip, and from some friends that I know that are very competitive with this car. I remember when I was learning to drive this at Daytona back in February, it just seems like they like to be on the throttle to keep that power band, I believe with the turbo, just keep the power in the engine. And you'll see you can throw these cars into the corners. He downshifts to third gear, throws it to the bottom. You don't want to use too much curb in turn number 1. It'll upset the balance, send you wide. These cars cannot quite make it through this S full throttle, I do not believe. As he comes up on the slower, the Cadillac of Richard Schauderin, who will stay to the outside, I believe, and give him the lane entering the carousel, as that Giraffe, the Cadillac, clearly pretty fast on the straightaways, just doesn't quite turn as well as these McLarens. The McLarens with a lot of grip. As you want to be right up on the curbing, as we see Enzo coming out of the carousel way wide into the grass. This is one of the most interesting corners on the track, in my opinion. This left-hander right here, very easy to miss. You got to be really precise to get it low quick enough to be able to carry that speed. And then this turn right here, turn number 7, I believe, that concrete patch that starts way high and drifts down the corner. You want to be right on top of that to carry all the grip you can around that corner.
Indeed, so fantastic stuff that we have going on course between these two McLarens. Just a heck of a fight. And the thing that I love about these GT cars especially is just how much the drivers can really just get their, pull their elbows up, if you will, get up on the steering wheel and absolutely push this car. I mean, just throw it into the corner, as you mentioned, clipping pieces of curbing, just driving it off the grass a little bit and kicking up some dust. I mean, you can kind of do these things in the Daytona prototypes, but again, aerodynamics already at a premium on those cars. So you don't want to do anything to really upset those vehicles. But when you look at these McLarens and you look at these Cadillacs that are also in the shot as well, they're just fantastic. Watching these guys really just muscling the cars, and drivers drive. I mean, that's what I think a lot of racing is kind of missing these days with the computers and these electronics and everything, is you kind of have a hard time really just letting the driver drive the car. And that's one of the more refreshing things, I think, on the GT cars, which are still pretty technologically driven, but I mean, again, you can really work the car a lot more than you could say like a prototype or one of the LMP prototypes, or even like the stock cars that a lot of people are used to with the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. So it's just a lot easier to muscle these cars and a lot more fun to watch, I think, as we continue to watch that battle.
And Dylan Charmin is actually creeping back up to the number 4 of Enzo Benito. Charmin last lap went a 1 minute 44.035. That's his best lap of the race. That is less than a second off of the pole time, and obviously the fuel load in qualifying being much lower. So his best lap just now coming on lap 26 for him, which is pretty incredible. Enzo running in a very, very nice line, but simply just not able to pull away from Dylan Charmin. Dylan is always one of the most competitive. No matter the car in this sim, Dylan Sharman is extremely stiff competition. As actually, with 9 minutes until the halfway point, these McLarens bypassing pit road, I get the feeling that they are able to go halfway, but I don't know that for a fact. Anthony Rosselli, number 2, currently leading overall, and he has not come to pit road yet. We've seen George Sandman pit, and we did see Mitchell DeJong pit, but the number 2, Anthony Rosselli, has not pit yet, and it'll be interesting to see if he's trying to stretch it to the halfway point to be able to make it on one stop. I'm not sure that that's possible, but Anthony was running about 2 seconds behind Mitchell before Mitchell DeJong came down pit road, so he's definitely trying to stay out as long as he can and get any advantage. The saying goes, if you're running second, if you can't get to him on speed at that very moment, you just got to do the opposite of whatever the leader does, and that'll give you a chance.
Well, reports coming in that the number 39 Daytona prototype of Dennis Hirschke has actually went off track. It looks like he's going to lose some positions here after just a slight excursion. Looks like everything is back and running normal. But yeah, again, the number 2 of Anthony Rosselli talking, kind of talking about what you were saying there. It is going to be pretty tough to make this race on the fuel strategy by pushing like that. But, again, he was behind Mitchell for the whole first part of the race, and we weren't able to get a very good idea if there was some fantastic fuel-saving mode, like lifting of the throttle, coasting a little more, going into some serious fuel-saving mode, because perhaps he realized that he didn't have the outright pace that Mitchell has, and perhaps the best chance for him to take the win, or at least seize the advantage, was by stretching that fuel and trying to get Mitchell marred in traffic, which he is currently 31 seconds off of Anthony Rosselli at this time. Try to get him mired in some traffic back there and push as long as he can and come out with the leads, with the win, actually, when it's all said and done. So some interesting stuff coming from the front in the Daytona prototypes. So I will be interested to see how that works out. Again, Jacob, let's see, it's Anthony Rosselli leading overall. Antoine Higelin is second. Third is Bernard Berger, who's had just a real calm, relaxing race. I followed him for a while because I actually joined the spectating under his spotter. And John Emerson is fourth in the number 6, and Jacob Desmarais is fifth in the number 25 car, with our early on leader Mitchell DeJong in 6th. Looking back at the McLaren class, the number 4 of Enzo Benito still leads, as the leaders are coming up on these McLarens. The overall leaders are coming up on these lead McLarens. So Enzo Benito still leading in the number 4, followed by the number 1 of Dylan Sharman, and Teemu Ivanen again in the number 9 is third in that class. And then Jason Mitzi is still leading that Cadillac class in the number 8 Cadillac CCSV with few cars. It looks like most of those cars in the lead lap, a few of them kind of off the lap there in the Cadillac class, but still we've seen some fantastic racing actually going on from some of those guys like Kevin Parrish, the number 27 car. I was watching him for a while, as it looks like Mitzi's come into the pits here for the Cadillac boys. Number 8 Jason Mitzi in the pits, it appears. And then Kevin Parrish then jumping into second place in the Cadillac class, and the number 21 car assuming the lead. I'm not even going to try to butcher his name because that wouldn't be fair to him. So action in the Cadillac class, and action pretty much all over. So, but interesting strategies coming to light.
Yeah, and Jason Mitzi, as we hear the 33 car of Akos Pur also down pit road, but Jason Mitzi will be about 10 minutes short overall on fuel, so he'll have to come back in and get a splash of fuel to be able to make it to the end of the way. But as I go back to the number 2 of Anthony Rosselli, who's still out there, he needs to go another 4 or 5 minutes to be able to make it to halfway. And if my memory serves me correctly, I may be wrong on this, but I want to say that he won one of the 2.4 hours of Daytona back in January or February, and So certainly Anthony Rosselli has a number of DP wins to his credit, probably countless. I'm not even sure of the total, just the various Grand Am mixed class and whatnot. But Rosselli is no stranger to putting himself into position to win as he stays out once again. So he'll have to go approximately, I want to say, 3 more laps to be able to make it on one stop. 2 or 3 more laps. Actually, right on 2 laps. If he could go 2 laps from here, he should be able to make it to the end on one stop without any issue.
Okay, so there you have it. Yes, not quite as familiar with some of these Grand Am multi-class guys. I do have quite a few. I know quite a few people who run the ALMS style, but not as familiar. But great stuff from Rosselli, and if you're able to take one of those 2.4 Daytona out, wins, I mean that's impressive in itself. So we'll definitely be watching to see if he can make those extra 3 laps to make this a one-stop strategy, and that will actually prove to be pretty damaging to Mitchell, who came in very early. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to really make up that kind of time on the pit stop or whatnot, because he's still 30.5 seconds off of Anthony's time back there in 5th. He was able to get around Jacob Desmarais and move into the 5th position and made up about a second in doing so. But the fact of the matter is this, is it too late? Is it 30? I don't think the pit stop time or pit stop bogey will be 30 seconds, but it will be interesting to see what we have as the 21 car of that was the overall Cadillac leader. I'm sorry, the 21 car has went into the pits and gotten and come out of the pits, and Kevin Parrish and the number 27 actually leads the Cadillac class at this moment. So just an update from your Cadillac field there. But back to Rosselli again. It will be interesting to see if he can make those extra 3 laps. May be or may not be damaging to Mitchell, and it depends on how long Mitchell can go, because like we said, he stopped kind of early, comparatively speaking. So,
and I think if Rosselli is able to come down pit road this time by, as long as he makes it around under power, he has a pretty good shot of making it on the one pit stop. He might have to do a little bit of extra saving should he pit this lap. He might have to save a little bit extra to be able to go the full distance. He'll have to save about 20 seconds extra. But with 50 or 45 seconds to go right now in the half, Rosselli is looking to be in very good shape right now, as all he has to do is come around and get to pit road. And he looks to be on the winning strategy, as the 27 of Kevin Parrish, who was just mentioned as the leader, has actually come down pit road very close to the halfway point. He's exiting pit road with 1 hour and 30 seconds left in the race. So he'll have to save just a little bit to ensure that he doesn't run out, but we'll have to see if fuel strategy comes into play. Obviously, Jason Mitzi leading the Cadillac most of the way, but the 34 of Richard Schauderin right now being shown as the Cadillac leader, and Mitzi about, I would say, 9 seconds behind him right now, who already has come down pit road. So while Schauderin hasn't set the pace in the Cadillac, he seems to be right there to capitalize should he be able to go the rest of the way on just the one pit stop.
indeed, so good stuff that we're seeing on track through the Cadillac. So try to get the Cadillacs worked in there. No love lost for the Cadillac GT cars as well. Like I said, very difficult car to drive. So props to all the guys who are racing in the 120 Minutes of Thunder from inside Sim Racing TV. Props to you guys for even stepping foot in that car, because it is a beast to drive. As are the Daytona prototypes, I feel, are a little difficult to drive as well. So, but still looking, we still have Rosselli on track. Rosselli still pushing this car so he should be safe to make this a one-stop race. And it will be interesting to see exactly what Mitchell is going to do to respond to this, because he is making up time, Mitchell. He is 28 seconds off. And at what point do you, as Anthony Rosselli, do you say, hey, just in case he tries to push fuel-wise, perhaps I should actually, maybe come in, because I'm starting to lose some time, because he was about 31.5 seconds behind the lead there, and now he's worked his way up to 28.9 in 5th position is Mitchell de Jong of the number 22 Daytona prototype. So when do you stop if you're Anthony?
Well, actually, Rosselli, I think he's trying to do is just trying to get the fuel saving out of the way this run so he can push pretty hard on the next one. He probably doesn't want to save very much, and as he stays out another time, I think that is the strategy here. I think he wants to do all his saving right now, come in a couple of minutes past halfway. I'm surprised he has gone as far as he has, but he seems to be... It should all go okay. I do believe should all go his way. Mitchell de Jong will probably have to make another pit stop, and Rosselli will not, as we are past halfway, an hour and 2 minutes into this race, and Rosselli probably just looking to save that little bit before coming in, and then he can just go all out on the final run for about 55 minutes.
Okay, well, we're going to step away for just a moment as Rosselli continues to work the race here. We're going to go side by side so you won't miss a thing if he does make that crucial pit stop. Here from Watkins Glen International, we are working just now over halfway the 120 minutes of Thunder presented by Inside Sim Racing TV.
InsideSimRacing.tv, the fastest show on the internet. Sim racing news and reviews since 2007, with new shows every week.
Join 5,000 plus other listeners where you can hear everything from big 80s metal to classic rock and roll, country radio, ETV, live sports radio, even adult and unplugged rock and roll. HDRadioNetwork.com, one of the fastest growing internet radio networks, HDRadioNetwork.com. Take it with you, cowboy. Get the mobile app for Android, iPhone, iPad, and all the rest from TuneIn.com.
And welcome back to Watkins Glen as we are now watching Anthony Rosselli here for the 120 minutes of Thunder presented by Inside Sim Racing TV. Special shout out to those guys over there with Sean Cole and what was the other? Well, I forget the other guy's name. What was it there, Harrison?
Darren Ganji and Sean Cole.
Exactly, yes. So special shout out to them. Sorry for putting this together for us and letting us broadcast on this spectacular action here at Watkins Glen International for the 120 minutes of Thunder. So this has been a great time, a great race with all these guys, all of these cars, all these drivers putting together a fantastic effort and lasting as long as they have. Again, Anthony Rosselli, we're watching him with keen interest because he is still not come in for a pit stop. And is actually now 24 seconds ahead of Mitchell de Jong. Oh, Mitchell de Jong all the way up, actually, as the last of the... as most of these other guys have now come in to the pits here, it looks like, because Mitchell de Jong is up to second place, right behind Rosselli, even though he is 29 seconds according to the timing and scoring loop.
And actually, I should apologize because I had something wrong with the elapsed time of the race. It was actually including the pace lap and was not from the drop of the green flag. So what happened was we were about 2 or 3 minutes shorter on time than I realized. And Anthony Rosselli actually has passed halfway. So I do think now that we're officially past halfway, I would say we're about 2 or 3 minutes past halfway. We should see Rosselli come to pit road very soon. And now, since we're officially at the half, he will have no problems going the distance, as it appears that he will be coming to pit road this time, judging by his shallow entrance into turn number 11 as he hits pit lane. Our race leader, Anthony Rosselli.
Yes, Rosselli finally in the pits, along with our third place, actually, Timo Ivinen of the McLaren class, the number 4, the number 9. He was also in, but the bigger thing at hand here is that Anthony Rosselli, the number 2, is now in the pits and just gets around that McLaren, as it did kind of provide a little bit of a roadblock there. But Rosselli in, looks as though the service is going just fine, and it'll be interesting to see how far or not that he comes out ahead. So we watch the car getting service, long stop as they try to jam pack every amount of fuel in there so he can push hard for the last half of the race here. So still seeing now finally away here is Anthony Rosselli back onto the track. So yes, Anthony Rosselli now working through the pit out into that super fast turn 2 and 3 area, and he has.
And actually,
go ahead, Harrison.
We actually saw the 22 of Mitchell de Jong fly by while Anthony was in his pit stall. And what Anthony Rosselli wanted to do there was to not make any foolish mistakes. He's got the strategy that looks like it will play out. He should be good to go for the distance. Mitchell in the number 22 is going to have a sizable lead right now. So Rosselli just wanted to make sure he did not merge too quickly. He did not miss the commitment cone. No speeding on pit road. And it appears that all is well for Rosselli, as he will come out. I think he's going to be about 15 seconds behind the leader as the number 22 back at the point. But obviously, probably a little worried that his strategy might not work out. He'll need a mistake from the number 2 of Rosselli to be able to win this race, most likely. So it looks like a clean stop for the number 2 of Rosselli.
Indeed, and some interesting things coming actually from some of the producers here. Not sure 100% if Rosselli got tires. I thought that he had, but with the length of the pit stop being 23.5, but I guess we'll see exactly how that works. But other news: the number 1 car of Dylan Sharman had made his stop, so the leader of the McLaren class was in and out. He's in P1 for the McLarens with Enzo Benito, the number 4. He is second in class with Timo Ivinen, and third for that McLaren class. So and then as well the Cadillac, Jason Mitzi as well leading the Cadillacs. And so reports that we do have a car in the tires.
Yeah, I believe it was the 33 of Akos Bakor. Might have had an incident off the track as I rewind. He's in the Cadillacs, currently being shown 29th overall, which is about 6th or 7th in his class. And he went off in turn number 7. They have that concrete patch way to the outside that you want to be up, and he had a Daytona prototype looking underneath him, and he simply overshot the corner, ended up making very slight contact, if at all, with the tire. So able to avert major disaster right there, but certainly lost a lot of time. But a nice job for it to not be any worse than it was, because it could have really destroyed his race car had he got in there any hotter. So able to continue on is the number 33 of the car.
Okay, so really the first kind of slip-up I've seen anyways from one of the Cadillacs. So they've been running very well, very competitive, very fun to watch so far today. So, okay, but going back up to the front, so let's talk about it. Mitchell de Jong currently first overall, the number 22 Daytona prototype, leading this race, with number 7 George Sandman in second place in class, and then Anthony Rosselli is third in that number 2 Daytona prototype. Still waiting to see exactly how all of this strategy unfolds. That's the fun part about this road racing stuff, especially when you got a 2-hour race. You never know what kind of strategies you can see, and it will be interesting at the very end to see how long Mitchell can push this car, or if Rosselli actually indeed had that trump strategy by stretching well over halfway for the race. So fantastic stuff.
And Rosselli actually, I did go back and look, and he did get his tires, and right now making up a lot of ground. He came out of the pits about 18 or 19 seconds behind the number 22 of Mitchell de Jong, but right now that has shrunk to 16 and a half seconds roughly. George Sandman, who is on a very similar strategy to the number 22 of de Jong, I believe Sandman pitted 2 laps after Mitchell did. But Rosselli stretching it far beyond what they did, at least 10 laps past them. So Rosselli right now looking to be in good position.
Reports now that actually Enzo is in a bit of a trouble here. The second place there in the McLaren class.
Wow, that's a big problem coming out of turn number 7. That's a big crash for the number 4 of Enzo Benito. He was right on the number 1 car of Dylan Sharman when this happened. What happened to Enzo was when he was coming out of that corner, he's following that concrete patch. He gets a bit of an understeer, and as his left rear tire catches the grass, there is no grip, and he tried to get it wound down, but he slapped the inside wall. And actually also involved in that is Kevin Parrish in the Cadillac, who was being shown in either 3rd or 4th position in the Cadillac, which is about 26th overall. I'll have to check to see if anyone else got involved, but Enzo actually was sent outside of the track, so that is a really tough break for who was Dylan Sharman's main competition. He was running in 2nd place right on Dylan, and they were trading the lead for much of that opening hour of the race. And unfortunately for Enzo Benito, a good run gone sour, as he will have no shot at this win at this point.
Well, it was equally frightening with some of our high-end Daytona prototype guys had moved right through the crash area as that was happening. I had caught the tail end of it. I had caught the Cadillac there, and I was about to call out that Kevin Parrish had actually spun while we were going through a rundown of the field, but then I had no idea that before that Enzo Benito had actually been the cause of that. So huge blow in the GT, the McLaren GT ranks, and that leaves Dylan Sharman, I don't want to say unopposed, but again, like you mentioned, his number 1 competition in that class is now gone, and it'll be up to Teemu even if he has the speed and the pace to catch him. The time is now, because Dylan is in the lead by a rather hefty margin.
Yeah, and as Dylan Sharman was exiting turn number 1 and giving way to Anthony Rosselli to let him go, Teemu was about at the start-finish line, so I would say the gap is probably in the neighborhood of 6 seconds without seeing it in front of me. But it looks to be about a 6-second lead for the number 1 of Dylan Sharman. And that was a scare for Anthony Rosselli, because coming through that wreck, Rosselli was side by side with another car, and Kevin Parrish, the disabled Cadillac who got into Benito, Enzo Benito. When he got into Enzo, he was disabled on the track, and Rosselli had to squeeze by. I think he was only clear by about 2 feet, but thankfully no netcode issues there. He's able to squeeze right on by and cuts it very close without any contact.
Okay, well, let's see what else we have here. Still following the race overall, Mitchell de Jong still leading this race overall by 14.3 seconds over George Sandman in the number 7 car, and Anthony Rosselli, like we just mentioned, escaping danger to remain on the final step of the podium, as he is 19 seconds off and just waiting for his strategy to come into play to see if we have the issue with Mitchell needing gas. So definitely something that we need to keep our eyes on as we watch this race unfold. Looking back at the McLarens, Dylan Sharman still leading with Marcus Giroux in 2nd, Teemu even in 3rd in the number 9 car, and then Jason Mitzi still leading that Cadillac field in the number 8 as well. So fantastic stuff all around, and still waiting to see if maybe we'll get some of those McLarens to break into the top 10, as we have about 48 minutes left in this race. If the remaining time counter is correct on the sim here, 48 minutes remaining in this race. So good stuff, and I look forward. Again, I'm kind of eager. I kind of want to fast forward the race just to see if I can, just to see how this fuel strategy plays out. That's the biggest thing for me. I want to see. You know, again, it's a terrible shame that Enzo is winning to the wall in the McLarens, but I really want to see how all this fuel strategy is going to play out as we go forward, and hopefully we don't have any late incidents or wrecks that will dictate how this race goes, because I think that we're in for a real treat, to be honest.
And we had noticed that it is definitely getting down to crunch time. It will be really entertaining to see how this pans out. But Rosselli, we had noted that he gained about 3 seconds since exiting the pits. He has since caught up with a lot of that lap traffic. As we mentioned, he barely avoided that wreck where he was side by side working his way around slower traffic. Rosselli has actually lost about 3.5 seconds to the leader, but I also believe that he wants to bank a little extra gas. Right now, he's, I think, about 2 or 3 tenths slower than the leader, but I think he's making sure that he will be able to go the distance. Rosselli pretty close on speed to Mitchell. As we saw when they were on the same strategy, Anthony kind of hung about 2 seconds behind him. So right now, it's a 14-second lead that Mitchell DeJong has on George Sandman, and Rosselli in the number 2, about 20 seconds behind, and in position to inherit the lead should Mitchell come down pit road, because even if Mitchell just takes as much gas as he needs, I believe that 20 seconds will be close enough to inherit the lead if you're Anthony Rosselli.
And another guy that we shouldn't actually discount is the number 7 of George Sandman, because I don't know exactly when. I know that he stopped after Mitchell, but I did not recall exactly what lap that was. But he does have the ability as well to take this if his strategy's spot on, depending on how long it was that he how much further actually he went than Mitchell did in the pit strategy. So I guess we can't count out George either, so no offense to George, but Anthony is the one that we're watching as well because of how far he pushed.
Yeah, I know George Sandman, I think, pushed about 2 laps further than Mitchell, so I'm a little bit skeptical of his ability to go the distance, but he certainly cut it a little closer, probably 2 to 3 minutes closer. So if he's able to save, it doesn't appear that he's saving at all, so he might not think that he can go the distance. Actually, George Sandman that lap went a 37.14, which is a very fast lap considering the tires right now. Last time by, Mitchell went a 38.29. For most of this race, Mitchell has had the pace, but not the fuel mileage as of right now. But George Sandman, last lap, fastest car on the track, narrowed that gap from about 14.5 seconds to 13.0 seconds. So George is in this mix, and it appears that it's basically a 3-horse race with the 4th place car of Antoine Higlin is about 31 seconds behind. So right now it appears to be just a race between Mitchell, George, and Anthony.
All right, well, just a couple notes. Yanni Hagner and Kitty Eggstrom now officially being shown as retired again. They were involved in that massive scrum that happened back around lap 18 where all those Daytona prototypes are collected, but they have since parked the car in the garage and will not be returning onto the track at this time, given those the damage is terminal and race over. So tough break for those guys, as that was the most riveting battle on track at the time that it happened, there towards the back of the Daytona prototypes, but it was not to be. So let's talk about, actually, let's take a break from the action, not really go to commercial, but I do want to talk that there are prizes. There are prizes on the line that you have to have been registered. Okay, you had to have registered at Inside Sim Racing, in the car that with a car that you were going to run. So you had to identify which car you were going to run, register with Inside Sim Racing, and then you have to get this. You have to finish the race without an incident and be within 1 lap of the leader in their class to be eligible. And the list of prizes that we actually have: Fanatec CSL wheel valued at almost at $300, grandstand wheel stand, Sim Instruments dash, a couple Tamiya USA 2 models, Sim Experience licenses that are valued at about $89 a piece, the Derek Spear Designs Track Boss button box, and the main performance PCs, solid state drive, and then probably my favorite, even though I'm terrible at this game, is the IGP manager. You get a 1-year license with the codes for valued at about £30 for our UK folk. That's what, about $50 US. So all of those things up for grabs here in the 120 minutes of Thunder, brought to you by Inside Sim Racing TV. So fantastic stuff being brought to the prize pool. Yet another reason why I wish I would have joined the race.
Yeah, it's very cool of Inside Sim Racing to offer those prizes. A lot of really interesting stuff, and I tell you that to get through this race with 0 incidents, that is a challenge. That is a worthy challenge to take on. But the one thing in these drivers' favor is probably the most incident-prone corner in this track is not in the classic boot. It is that inner loop, that bus stop down the backstretch. And often you would get a 1X just entering that inner loop, just barely grazing the grass with your right sides as you cut across those curbs. But obviously staying out of trouble here and not getting any incidents in a 2-hour-long race, insanely difficult. I do know it doesn't appear that there are a number of drivers who have accomplished that in this top split, but those prizes are available for I believe they're available for everyone. I'm not sure if it says. But going back, I was told that George Sandman pitted on lap 26, which was 45 minutes into the race. So while it's not definitive, I would say that George would have a lot of trouble trying to save enough gas to be able to go an hour and 15 minutes. So I think George is on the 2-stop strategy, but actually a lap ago he went a 37.07, which is a pretty good lap on those tires. Actually, his best lap of the race was a 36.85. I'm not sure if that's the best overall, the best lap of any driver in this race, but it's pretty close. But Sandman holding strong in second right now, running some very nice lap times.
Indeed. Well, let's take just a quick second to thank the people who organized this race and made all of this possible. Inside Sim Racing, sponsoring the Thursday night Real Sim Racing series. Inside Sim Racing, your first and best choice for all the news and reviews in online motorsports. Join Darren Ganji, got the name this time, my apologies, and Sean Cole for the latest and greatest in product reviews, simulation auto racing games for PCs and the Xbox crowd, from steering wheels to full-size racing rigs, updates on popular racing games, and a whole lot more. So definitely want to visit Inside Sim Racing for all of your news, especially with all the new consoles coming out. I know that we have Forza Motorsports, Gran Turismo getting ready to launch on the new consoles. We still have obviously the iRacing World Championships, and all of that fun stuff. So keep it to Inside Sim Racing TV for all of that stuff. Phenomenal resource, and I would like to thank them again for putting on this great show here at Watkins Glen International for the 120 minutes of Thunder. So just doing a quick recap of the field, we have about just over 39 minutes left of on-track action. Mitchell de Jong is leading this in the number 22 Daytona prototype with a sketchy fuel strategy at the moment. Second is the number 7 of George Sandman, who also has an equally sketchy pit strategy going into the last part of the race. The guy who may be in the catbird seat, sitting third in class and third overall, is the number 2 Daytona prototype of Anthony Rosselli. Moving back to the McLaren class, we have the number 1 McLaren of Dylan Sharman leading the McLarens, followed by Marcus Girac and Timo Ivanen. And then moving into our Cadillac, as you just seen moments ago, the number 8 Cadillac of Jason Mitzi is leading that, as he has been leading pretty much from the start. The only time I believe he relinquished the lead was when he stopped for service. So that's what's going on at the moment, and Rosselli is floating right around the 19.7 seconds left here, or behind rather, not left, behind Mitchell. So he's kind of hovering about that 20-second mark, and George there right at 11 as well, so he's still trimming down the time, and it'll be interesting to see when exactly Mitchell goes into fuel saving mode if he is in fact going to have to stop again. It'll be interesting to see when he starts to really do that, because we could see George really, and Anthony for that matter, really close up on the back wing there of Mitchell de Jong.
Yeah, if Mitchell is running the same exact pace and decides to come in basically the same way that he did on his first run, I do believe we are about 5 or 10 minutes away from him coming to pit road. So Mitchell de Jong right now, last lap at 37.19. George Sandman, the last number of laps, has been the fastest car on the track. Rosselli running a decent pace himself, but right now a 3-horse race. Antoine Hagelin losing a little bit of time, 35 seconds behind the leader. And it will be interesting to see, as we have noted, I believe the McLarens are all good to go on a 1 pit stop race. But as we look to the Cadillacs, when we saw Jason Mitzi relinquish that lead, we did see Richard Schauderin stay out quite a bit longer. I think the Cadillacs have the possibility of making this race on 1-stop strategy, just like Anthony Rosselli is trying to do with the DP.
Okay, so well, we are currently watching the races here. It will be interesting to see exactly what happens with those Cadillacs, because yeah, they are a tricky so-and-so with the ability to perhaps only go 1 stop. So and you're right, Richard did go much further into the race than did Jason Mitzi. Mitzi again with the pace, or has had the pace all race long. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So overall, things just business as normal as we're getting ready to kind of enter the last kind of sprint, if you will. We'll see who's got it and who doesn't in all the classes. But again, we'll be keeping a keen eye on the Daytona prototypes to see exactly if and when that situation with Sandman, Rosselli, and De Jong really starts to take shape. And then we will monitor to see if anybody has a prayer, really, of catching Dylan Sharman in that McLaren, who's proven oh so tough for the last hour and a half or so. So good stuff. Have you had Harrison any moments of the race? Any of your favorite moments of the race, or anything that stood out in your mind as potentially the difference maker? But you can't say the pit stop, because obviously that was a huge piece of the puzzle.
I would have to say that the biggest difference maker right now would probably have to be Enzo Benito when he swung wide out of turn number 8, I believe. Yeah, actually it was turn number 8. And that was a great battle. And Dylan Sharman and Enzo very, very close on speed, and it was a really spirited battle, I guess you could call it. And Enzo trying to keep up, just swung a little bit wide, missed the corner just a hair, and that's all you need. These guys are right on the edge, and it's very easy to overstep it. You overstep it by an inch, and the car just barely gets in that grass and comes around. So I would say that was probably the biggest factor in Dylan Sharman likely being able to get this win, should he have enough of a lead through pit stop strategy. Certainly he has been the fastest car on the track. So since Dylan probably has to pit again, he's running as fast as he can, and he wants to pull out to as big of an advantage as he can in case anyone stretches it. But I would say that was probably the biggest factor in any of our battles.
Indeed, that has proven to be keen as well. So good stuff all around. Still got some guys, a lot of the Daytona prototypes, besides the ones that we had that were fully retired.
It's the number 22 car of Mitchell de Jong came down pit road, and that has relinquished the lead to the number 7 of George Sandman, who might follow suit very shortly. But Mitchell has officially come down pit road with about 32 minutes left in this race, and that moves Anthony Rosselli to 8 seconds behind the leader. Mitchell just crossed the line, and he is 25 seconds behind George right now, and if my poor math is correct, he's about 16.8 seconds behind Anthony Rosselli, who will actually gain the lead should George come to pit road really soon. And George right now working through the boot section of the track. He went 1 lap further than that number 22 of Mitchell de Jong on the first run. So I do think that we will see Sandman come to pit road within a lap or two.
Yeah, he should be right on the wing there of Mitchell as far as fuel strategy and pit strategy goes, which would actually give sorry about that little technical glitch, but that would give the lead to Anthony Roselli, as we talked about, who is 8 seconds behind George, and George again following suit right behind. So it is finally come to fruition. About 30 minutes out, we still got about 32 minutes 45 seconds of racing left, and there he goes. And so there you have it. Yep, George Sandman has hit pit road for service on his car, as was predicted. It would be about a lap or two after Mitchell had made his pit stop. That will give Anthony Roselli the lead and put him in a mighty fine position for this race, as he went well over the halfway point on one tank of gas. So it is absolutely come to fruition here for Anthony Roselli, and he should be able to take this home. Now, granted, there is still 32 minutes, and a lot could go wrong, but it could be a real situation where Roselli just needs to get there and finish the race in that number 2 car. So let's see, moving ahead in the GT class, let's see, we'll stick with the DPs for just a moment here as we try to live okay, so further back in the McLaren pack, actually, we'll go to the further back in the McLaren pack. We have the number 14 of Craig Hunter and the number 37 of Timo Tulinen. Hopefully I got that right. Hopefully my finish is good enough today. But they have a pretty incredible battle going on right now on track with these McLarens, with cars going off into the grass a little bit there. So heated exchange, heated battle now between these between what will be the 6th place in the McLaren class, 17th position overall on track for Craig Hunter, as he does battle, tries to hold off Timo Tulinen as they come back on to the NASCARized section of the track, if you will, coming into turns 10 and 11, coming to the start-finish line. But a great battle, and a Daytona prototype actually mixed in the battle with them, that being John Emerson. So John Emerson, who is currently shown in the 5th position, is mixed up in that battle with them in the number 6 car. So overall, though, on top, Roselli has taken the lead. He is currently 16 seconds ahead of Antoine Higelin. 3rd place is Mitchell De Jong at 17.2 seconds back, followed by Bernard Berger, John Emerson, and then in 6th place is George Sandman. So good stuff here. Good battles all over the track, as again we have 30 minutes left in this race, so we're 3/4 of the way there. And we're really now starting to see these guys kind of come alive. Fuel strategy has kind of came and gone for a lot of them, and it is now full speed and try to make up as many positions as you can. So, Harrison, good stuff, and it played out just as you suspected, with Roselli in the catbird seat now by a pretty hefty margin. Well, it seems as though I can't actually hear Harrison. It must have went for a beverage or something. So he's went to the bar. The race is over. He's phoned it in after the strategy. So interesting stuff, though, as we continue to watch this. And actually, I think we could go ahead and go to commercial for the last time, and then come back and bring you the last just under 30 minutes of the race. Bring that to you all the way back to the checkered flag. So we will actually step away for one moment here. The 120 minutes of thunder with Inside Sim Racing TV, brought to you and broadcast by ETV Live. So we'll be right back.
It's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Travis, start your engines!
Michael Conti comes up at a corner number 4 to the checkered flag. He wins his first NASCAR iRacing.
Inside SimRacing.tv, the fastest show on the internet. Sim racing news and reviews since 2007, with new shows every week.
Okay, welcome back to Watkins Glen International for the 120 minutes of thunder as we make the final push for the last 25 minutes of this awesome event put together by Inside Sim Racing TV, Inside SimRacing.com. So we're going to go ahead and hit the top 5 in each class as we continue to wind down here. First position overall and in the Daytona prototype class is Anthony Rosselli. Second place is Mitchell DeJong at 14.889 seconds back in the 22. In third position is the number 12 prototype of Antoine Higelin. He is 18 seconds back. Fourth is the 26 of Bernard Berger. And fifth is the number 6 of John Emerson. Looking at the top 5 of the McLaren class, we have the number 1 McLaren of Dylan Sharman leading this race. Second place is the number 9 of Timo Ivanen. Third is the 19 of Bruno Do Carmo. Fourth is the 35 of Christian Frank. And fifth in the McLaren is that of Ronnie Fantini, another great GT driver that we have here today. The Cadillac class, which has been running consistent all day, the smallest class that we've had if you're just now joining us. The number 8 of Jason Mitzi is currently leading that by a rather healthy margin over the number 21. The number 11 car of Jean-Paul Neus is third. Richard Schauderin is fourth, and Aikos Bakar, who actually had some trouble earlier in the race with the tires, is in fifth overall in that class. So that is a march to the top 5 in the field in the different respective classes at the moment, as we are now 23 just over 23 minutes left on track, and reports now actually, Harrison, that the 60 car had came into the pits.
Yeah, the 16 of Marcus Hamilton, and actually first I must quickly apologize to the viewers. Actually, every USB device on my computer stopped working, so I had to disconnect everything and reconnect everything, and we're back. But Marcus Hamilton just making his way down pit road, and as Anthony Rosselli currently in the lead, Mitchell DeJong in second, and the number 22 is nailing every lap that he possibly can. Mitchell right now is hoping for a mistake from the leader. He's narrowed the margin, I think, about 2 seconds in the past 5 or 6 laps. Anthony surely saving a little bit to ensure that he's got some bank should he be close whatsoever. But since he had no problem going that hour, the first hour stint, he should be good to go. But he's in a high pressure situation. He can't afford to make a mistake. So Anthony Rosselli, the race has worked out into his hands right now for the overall and DP win, but Mitchell wants to put as much pressure on as he can, so Mitchell wants to knock off as much as he can. But with that last lap, Anthony went a 37.43 and Mitchell will not be able to gain more than a couple of tenths. And actually, Mitchell did only gain 2/10 on that lap. That seems to be par for the course right now.
All right. Well, as we continue to watch the action, I do want to give a shout out to our crew here at ETV Live, Laura, who has been working the cameras for you all race long, getting a full-fledged workout as she's trying to keep up with all the action from these great classes here at Watkins Glen. And then we have Jay Webb as well, who has been doing all the producing and spotting for us as behind the scenes. This broadcast would be impossible without them. So a special thank you to them as we continue to wind down. ETV Live, the only choice in simulation auto racing broadcasting. Since 2008, ETV Live has produced over 700 shows for over 220,000 viewers. ETV Live has pioneered and engineered some of the best innovations in online auto sports broadcasting with 3 pricing packages available today. If you are watching this race and you want to have a league and you want to broadcast that league, ETV Live is the only service that you need to be concerned with in broadcasting it. They're bringing to you these fantastic layovers here today for the multi-car. That is the first time that actually ETV has had it, and I do believe it's taken quite a bit of work from Laura, who's also now trying with minimal sleep to man the cameras and bring in this racing. So please, I've been in a couple races where they've been actually on ETV Live. I went back and watched myself, and it was just such a joy to watch. And then I've also been calling the road racing with them for a while. So a great group of people, and it's been fantastic to work this race. As we are now 20 minutes away from the conclusion, Anthony Rosselli is ahead, but here's something that's a bit interesting, and that is that Mitchell DeJong is pushing and is 13 seconds now off of the backside of Anthony Rosselli. So it shall be interesting with actually John Emerson. The number 6 car, John Emerson, has just parked it and retired the race. So I don't know exactly what happened. The car looked like it was running just fine as it came through turn number 1, and then the car just stopped off in the runoff area. So not exactly sure what happened there. Perhaps electrical issues to be blamed, but he is no longer there. Looks like an engine issue apparently is what's actually happened. So an engine could not take the full 2-hour race and has expired going into turn 1. So tough break for John Emerson, who'd been flirting with the top 5 overall all day. Again, but it's interesting to watch. I don't think there's enough time for Mitchell, but his tires perhaps maybe a little bit better, and you know, a little bit maybe more fuel. Not sure exactly on that 22 car, but it will be interesting to see if he makes up that time on Rosselli, or at least is in a position at the end of the race to challenge for that overall lead.
As Mitchell DeJong actually coming out of the final corner right now, 13.67 back. We'll see if he gains anything this lap, and he gains a full second. So Rosselli, we'll have to see if he has actually just worked past some lap traffic. He actually has passed a couple lap cars in the last lap or two. Might be a factor, might be saving a little bit. But Mitchell actually narrows that gap down to 12.5 seconds as actually possible battle. George Sandman, actually the battle is already over, but George Sandman in the number 7, who lost a decent amount of track position with that last pit stop. He was running, I believe, 6th just a few laps ago after his pit stop. Right now passing Bernhard Berger for position number 4. So move George Sandman up to 4th. And right now he's chasing down Antoine Hagelin in the number 12. He's approximately 2 seconds behind Antoine, but his lap times are roughly 2 seconds faster. So it won't be long until George will be challenging for that 3rd position. But Anthony Rosselli up front just trying to not make any mistakes. Mitchell is trying to do all he can to narrow that gap and put any kind of pressure on. And George is doing the same, just trying to get all he can at the end of this race. You never know what's going to happen. What happened there with John Emerson is a lot of times if you have a couple of missed shifts or you over-rev the engine while trying to rev match during downshifts or downshift too early, it raises the probability of a big failure, to put it pretty simply. But it appears that that's probably what happened. I actually, when I lost audio in the game, so I'm not able to hear if he over-revved it entering turn 1 when it grenaded but I'm assuming that might have been a factor throughout the race with using engine braking to slow these cars down.
Indeed, and if I could just take your attention back actually to the front. I know we've been following the lead here, these lead cars for pretty much the whole race, but there's an interesting thing here. Anthony Rosselli is losing pretty significant time to Mitchell De Jong. Mitchell was just laps ago was just about 13 seconds clear of Mitchell. That gap is actually now down to 11.8 with 16 minutes to play. It looks as though he's taken nearly a second out of Anthony Rosselli's lead each and every lap that is completed. So I don't think it's completely out of the woodworks yet for Anthony, as I think that Mitchell may, if he continues to push without problem, have something to say about this race before it is all said and done, and put together one phenomenal finish for us here at the 120 Minutes of Thunder.
Yeah, the advantage that Mitchell does have is that he's not worried about fuel whatsoever. So while Anthony is taking his time around a lot of the slower traffic, a lot of the multi-class cars, the cars that are actually running slower speed, when he comes up on these GT cars, he does not want to make a mistake. So I think Rosselli exhibiting a lot of patience right now. Meanwhile, Mitchell is thinking go or go home. Basically, he wants to make up all that he can. As this lap he crosses the line and he gains another 0.8. So narrow that gap down to 10.3 seconds with approximately 14 and a half minutes left in this race. So Anthony might be have some serious pressure behind him soon, but it looks like in the next lap or so, Mitchell will have to make his way around a number of cars that are multiple laps down, racing for position in the McLaren and Cadillac class. So it looks like he will lose some ground, or at least not be able to make up very much on this lap, as the Cadillac of Michael Angelage, currently shown in, I believe, 5th in the Cadillacs, gives away, and Mitchell is just looking to not make any mistakes right now and cost himself. But certainly this traffic right now is slowing Mitchell down, which Anthony would be glad to hear, which I'm not sure if he has a spotter relaying him that information, but Anthony in a tough spot. He does not want to make a mistake. He doesn't want to run out. He might be closer than we thought.
Indeed, it's one of those things where we've thought all the damage was done, and we thought that it was all going to be over with. But it appears as though Rosselli may come under some fierce opposition to taking this win before it's all said and done, as we have 14 minutes now left in the race, and that's more than enough time at which pace that Mitchell is catching Anthony. It's definitely there, but we're gonna actually take our focus back. We'll keep an eye on that Daytona prototype. We're gonna go back to the GT, the McLaren GTs, the class in which Dylan Sharman is leading. We're gonna ride on board with the number 9 of Timo Ivonen, who is in a pretty fierce battle right now with the number 19 of Bruno Do Carmo. Sorry about that. So a heated battle there in the McLarens, and something definitely to keep our eyes on, as this McLaren GT class has been so much fun to watch all day long. These guys really respecting each other on the track and putting on a phenomenal show with Enzo at one point before his retirement. And now it looks like Timo Ivonen and Bruno Do Carmo are going to be doing battle as well. So it's going to be fantastic to watch, as the 19 currently is the lead car here, but the McLaren getting a huge tow down into turn 1, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to do anything there. Not close enough to make that pass as they reset and head through this very high speed turns 2 and 3 area, heading into the straightaway, hoping to get some of that slipstream going into the carousel, Harrison.
And Timo certainly will be getting a big draft. He's a little bit higher coming through turn number 4, and now we see that run, and will he take it low before the carousel? Actually, Bruno being a little bit defensive, and the 9 of Timo just kind of backing out of it, just putting the pressure on, maybe trying to get Bruno to overshoot the carousel, which he does not. Right up over the curbing, though. But Timo looks like he lost some ground a couple laps ago, and then he started working his way back to Bruno, and that draft being a big help, as last lap he was at 44.82 for Timo. A lap before that was a 44.59. which is on par with the leader, which pretty much what the leader has been running every lap. As we saw the 9 get pretty loose out of turn number 7, but he is trying to work his way. If he gets close enough, he'll be able to complete the pass down that back straightaway with that slipstream, but is he fast enough to hold him off should he get there?
Indeed, getting up to the car is one thing, getting around the car is a completely different battle. But we are now at 12 minutes here left, 12 minutes of racing here at Watkins Glen International for the Inside Sim Racing 120 Minutes of Thunder here at the Glen. Just a quick shout out for Inside Sim Racing one more time for sponsoring the Thursday Night Real Sim Racing Series. Inside Sim Racing is your first and best choice for all the news and reviews in online motorsports. Join Darren Ganji and Sean Cole for the latest and greatest in product reviews, simulation auto racing games for PCs and the Xbox crowd, from steering wheels to full-size racing rigs, updates on popular racing games, and a whole lot more. So the yellow pages of online auto racing, Inside Sim Racing has it all. Visit them at www.isrtv.com. So, and again, thanks so much for putting together that fantastic race, that fantastic event. And it looks like we've had a Cadillac go off, the number 21 car, who's been running P2 in the Cadillac division all day today, has went off the track. Or is on pit road, rather, I'm sorry, is on pit road, so he's stopped. So late stop there coming from the Cadillac, not able to make it happen. But 10 minutes, guys, 10 minutes, Harrison. We've got a mad dash here. Mitchell is 9.4 seconds off the back of Rosselli. Is he going to catch him?
You know, I don't believe he has enough time, but racing is an unpredictable sport. Maybe Anthony didn't get quite as much gas as he wanted to during that pit stop, and he's having to backpedal more than he had to the first run. Certainly this run, I think, has been a little bit of a slower pace than the first run was for Anthony, and Mitchell trying to make up all the ground that he can. It seems that Anthony Rosselli is hanging around the low 38-second bracket, and Mitchell... To contrast, last lap was 2 laps ago he was a 37.20, which is about a full second faster. But as he's working his way around slower traffic, he has lost some time, and now he's going to lose another tenth or two, working around the McLaren of Craig Hunter. That number 14 Craig Hunter running currently in the 6th position in the McLaren class, which right ahead of Marcus Chirac. Sorry if I got the name wrong, but. Marcus is actually a veteran of road racing here in iRacing, very stiff competition, so that is a tough McLaren class. A great run for Craig Hunter right now. But Mitchell de Jong coming across the line, I believe he lost 0.3 that lap, so Anthony Rosselli 9.7 second lead with about 8 minutes to go.
Yeah, so interesting battle there, and now taking a look here at the battle here in 4th and 5th, that is between Antoine Higlen and Bernard Berger. They are currently running 4th and 5th respectively in the overall, and they are actually doing quite a battle now as they move up onto the straightaway through that high-speed Armco Valley. As there's right there, he's going to pull up onto the draft, is Bernard. So huge battle there. And Bernard Berger on the outside, not going to have the favorable position into the carousel, but he is going to take it too wide. Too wide there. He's going to lose out a little bit of time as Higlen will stay ahead just of Berger. And Berger's going to have to slip back in as this battle goes on. So a great battle here. For the top 5, you know, it might the top 2 might already be settled, but that's not going to stop the guys back here about 26 seconds off the pace from doing battle and trying to claw at that one position. So fantastic racing here between the number 12 and the number 26 as they continue to work. So 8 minutes now, 8 minutes to go here in the 120 Minutes of Thunder. What a long race it's been, but it has been phenomenal action so far. So, and it doesn't look like Mitchell is going to have enough time unless, as he's dropped a further 0.2 now to Anthony Rosselli. Unless there's another unless there's a mistake from Rosselli, it looks like De Jong is going to have to settle for that 2nd position in the number 22 car.
Yeah, and De Jong was dealing with a lot of the slower lap traffic, fighting for position in the GT class. So Mitchell losing some time working around slower cars, but right now he actually has open track to Rosselli, so he will be pushing hard the next 3 or 4 laps, just trying to get all that he can, leading to this finish. But George Sandman was able to get by the number 12 of Antoine Hegelin and was able to pull about 5 seconds already. So move Sandman up to third. As we saw in that battle down the backstretch, it was a perfect example of mixed class racing having an effect, because the McLaren was trying to get out of their way, but I believe it was Antoine who lost a lot of momentum trying to come around the McLaren in turn number 4, and then we saw it have a big effect on that straightaway. Antoine just ran low, ran defensive to try to protect that position, and Bernhard simply couldn't complete the pass in the carousel. So Antoine able to hold on to the position there. As I take a look back, and he's not being as pressured as he was before. So a close call for losing the position there as they worked around the lap traffic, but Antoine able to hold on as Mitchell De Jong comes out of the final corner to complete this lap. We'll have to see how much he gains. He has gained about half a second with a mid 37-second lap time. So Mitchell just not enough time, but as long as Anthony Rosselli got it full of fuel, and he looks to be in great shape.
Indeed, it looks like it might be too little too late, as it is 9.4. That is the gap between. So right at it, but let's go back again, as we're now just over 5 minutes left on track. Let's go back to the number 9 of Timo Ivinen in the McLaren battle there again with the 19 of Bruno De Carmo. These guys battling hard for the last few laps, trying to get that runner-up position, or perhaps to win if something's to happen to Dylan Sharman within the next 5 minutes. But the battle is happening, and Timo now driving as hard as he can, trying not to make any mistakes as they come through this boot section, trying to get around Bruno Bucarmo and onto that really tricky transition. That's a slick part of the track there, coming back into the formal kind of sprint cup circuit that everybody's familiar to, heading into 10 and 11.
Yeah, that number 19, it's a Four Brothers Motorsports car that Bruno is driving in the Inex Racing in tow. Both very nice looking McLarens. It's a tight battle for second position with Enzo Benito's problems. Dylan Sharman out to a solid lead over these guys. Actually, Dylan Sharman working his way down the backstretch, actually looking to give room to a Daytona prototype entering the carousel. But the battle for second, coming through the S's right now, Timo falling a little bit off. He's a little bit too far back to get that run down the backstretch that he is so desiring right now. But if he's able to get through the boot, or this DP is able to get Bruno to run a little bit high on entry to the carousel, it could have an effect. Bruno loses a little bit of time entering the carousel to tuck in behind that prototype, which brings Timo right back to him. And if he's able to keep up through the boot and through the first section of the course, Timo will be close enough to capitalize of that slipstream going down the backstretch.
All right, well, we're still looking here at the lead. This battle's still ongoing, but the lead is what it is. 8.1 seconds now at the very top overall between the number 2 of Anthony Rosselli and the 22 of Mitchell De Jong, both fighting for every little bit. Mitchell's slowly peeling back that gap, but with only 3 minutes now left in the battle, it's looking like it might be lights out unless there's some kind of problem from Rosselli. Rosselli is going to be treading a thin line, trying to make sure that he does not make a mistake, but at the same point is not too slow to give up multiple seconds per lap in the last couple laps of the race.
Yeah, Anthony Rosselli giving up about a second and a couple of tenths last time by, as we will have approximately 2 laps to go, I believe. But Mitchell De Jong, now that he got to, when he passed all that the slower traffic, he immediately ran a 1:37.15, which is about his pace. He seems to be running teens to 20s when he has that open track. But clearly the one-stop strategy is very beneficial for Anthony Rosselli is actually Mitchell's coming up on. Mitchell's running behind the battle between Bruno De Carmo and Teemu Ivonen, who are side by side. That 9 is side by side with the 19 coming through the carousel, but the 9 just drifts way too wide, just overshot the corner, and now the prototype of Mitchell de Jong looking to work around them. Mitchell using the high lane to get around Teemu, and now Mitchell will bypass Bruno entering turn number 7. So held up a little bit. Mitchell actually gets kind of high in that corner as he works around the 2 McLarens, but the 9 car tucked pretty close, about 3 car lengths behind Bruno, looking to do all he can. He got the good run last time by down the backstretch, but running out of time is Teemu.
All right, well, your class leaders at this point, the number 2 of Anthony Rosselli, still leading now with just about a minute and a half left. First place in the McLaren division is the number 1 of Dylan Sharman, and Jason Mitzi in the number 8 Cadillac is still showing the way there in the Cadillac CTSV category. So these guys just trying to hang on, as it looks like the white flag should be out next time by for this race. And we should have finally some conclusion to find out if Rosselli's strategy was enough. It's now 7.9 seconds the gap to Mitchell de Jong, but it may be, it appears to be too little too late, as long as Anthony can keep that car hitting the marks for the next lap or so. So good stuff here. George Sandman, again, the number 7, is in 3rd there overall. So a supreme performance, something that we're really going to have to talk about going forward with these kinds of cars in these races, these 2-hour races, is just how was it that Anthony Rosselli, I mean, what was the strategy that enabled him to take a 7, what essentially will be a 7.5 second victory if things hold on the way they have for the last few laps, where he went about 15 minutes longer than anybody else on track with his car.
Yeah, it might have been one of those things where Mitchell, looking at the fuel calculations before the race, just simply didn't think that they could go to halfway, so maybe he kept his car a little bit lighter, just trying to get a little more speed out of it. Kind of hard to tell right now. Certainly Anthony Rosselli's strategy paying off, as I think we might be under the white flag lap. I'm actually unsure, but the 2 car of Rosselli just coming through turn number 10 right now, and has enough of a cushion that he does not have to worry as we come to the finish of this race. Rosselli just needs to bring it back around, and as Dylan Sharman might be out of gas actually.
All right, it looks as though the race is actually over. I believe. I mean, he's still getting after it a bit, but I have the time, the remaining time after the other time is already eclipsed. I don't know. He's much slower. Okay, so it would be the final lap now. A bit of confusion there, as this multi-class racing is a bit different in the fact that it is all based on the time.
Yeah, the 2 of Anthony Rosselli actually has taken the checkered flag. Our timer was a couple of minutes off, but Anthony Rosselli, the strategy pays off. 2 hours 5 seconds is the time of the race.
Yeah, it looks as though if the results are, it is going to be Rosselli at 2 hours and 5 seconds, and Mitchell de Jong, who's kind of slowly pulled off the 22 car, looks like he's just fallen 6.5 seconds short of taking the victory. Again, the fuel strategy doing him in there at the end. 3rd place overall, and for the DP class is George Sandman, who will finish 18 seconds off of the lead car. Going back to the McLarens, Dylan Sharman took a comfortable win in that number 1 McLaren, with Bruno De Carmo hanging on to 2nd position in the number 19, with the number 9 of Teemu Ivonen finishing in the 3rd position in that class. And then Jason Mitzi, the guy who's been doing it all day long in the Cadillac, had just the right pace and just the right fuel strategy to take a victory, a rather dominant victory at that, over the number 21 Cadillac. So fantastic racing here at Watkins Glen International for the 120 Minutes of Thunder, presented by Inside Sim Racing TV, brought to you coverage of coverage brought to you by, rather, of the event by ETV Live. Phenomenal work all day, as it looks as though Roselli wants to do donuts on the straightaway, but doesn't realize that the car is kind of a pig, and we have donuts going on between McLarens and also Daytona prototypes. Oh, it looks like some hooning, perhaps the DP trying to do donuts around the McLaren. I don't know what's going on. They've lost their minds.
Yeah. Yeah, Anthony Rosselli, an impressive victory, and Dylan Sharman, after a great battle for half of the race with Enzo Benito, does come out on top. So dominating performances by, well, Anthony Rosselli certainly had strategy just totally set for the win. Mitchell DeJong, possibly the fastest car, comes up short overall. Dylan Sharman was the pole sitter, so he won from the pole in the McLaren class, and Jason Mitzi was also the pole sitter in the Cadillac. So 2 of our 3 pole sitters won in their respective classes. Anthony Rosselli qualified third, about 1900ths off of the overall pole, but takes home the victory with the strategy for the win.
All right, well, fantastic race overall. Great event, great racing. Very few incidents to really kind of cloud the race and change the outcome. But we want to say a special thanks to InsideSimRacing.com, InsideSimRacing.tv for all of their work with the 120 Minute Center here from Watkins Glen. Any final thoughts, Harrison?
Just as a very nice race, a great race put on by the folks at Inside Sim Racing with Darren Ganji, Sean Cole, a sim racing staple for many years with their high-quality show, and a nice show here tonight. We saw one fairly pretty big wreck, but it was a clean race otherwise. We just saw that one 4-car wreck coming through the carousel, but these drivers did a very good job, very in control, very fast. This is a really stacked road course race, so a lot of what we talked about came into play, and Anthony Rosselli, man, just simply did not make any mistakes this race, and he took home the win.
Indeed. So special thanks a lot again to everybody here at ETV Live who put together this broadcast. Laura doing your camera work. JD Webb was the engineer and the brains behind the operation. And for Harrison, I'm Sean. Everybody have a great night. Thanks so much for watching, and enjoy your Labor Day weekend here in the United States, and we will see you guys next time.